All right, test, 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 audio test. Let me know if you guys can hear me. I'll give it a few minutes before I start chatting away here. We'll do some Q&A, take a look at everything Pacific Northwest and see how this goes. All right, we got some people coming in the chat. Again, let me know how the audio sounds. It looks like it's okay on my side, but I seem to mess this up about 50% of the time, so let me know. Good audio. Glad to see it. All right, people joining the chat. Nice. Yeah, I just walked my dog around the block here, and it's just like walking through a swamp out there. We've got up over an inch of rain here in Normandy Park. I know it's a lot less across some of the Seattle area and a lot more down to the south and a lot more across some of the higher terrain. There we go. I can make this bigger. Okay, still setting up my chat here. 5x5 sounds good. All right, glad to hear it. And I'm going to switch account over here. I'm going to get a I'm just going to send out a link here really quick so people can join the chat. There we go. Yeah, glad to be back home. Still a little jet lagged, but I'm used to going out to Hawaii and being about 3 hours behind, and being on the East Coast and being out 3 hours ahead is a lot different. So fun stuff out there. Glad to get away for a little bit. Kind of nice seeing the sunshine, but glad to be back here just in time for the active weather here in the Pacific Northwest. So you guys can see, if you're across the Seattle Metro, you know, people are complaining about the rain shadow out there and whatnot. You can see it's filling in a bit here. You can see some bouts of moderate precipitation moving across some of downtown Seattle. Hopefully that's showing up for you guys nicely. But you see down towards SeaTac, the rain has been heavier and more persistent. You get down towards Des Moines, Federal Way in Tacoma, down towards Olympia, and you're just getting bombarded with this moderate and some heavy rainfall. And across the higher terrain, again, just absolutely getting plastered. And what you see here is a bit of westerly surge kind of sliding down through the Strait of Juan de Fuca there, pushing out towards Everett over here. So yeah, I can see some precipitation there. But yeah, you can also see the rain shadowing that's been in effect for much of the day, again, off to the northeast of the Olympic Mountains. And I've also got the GOES 18 satellite imagery over there. You can see our plume of moisture all the way back across the Pacific, just north of the Hawaiian Islands. Big ridge of high pressure keeping California nice and clear of the rainfall and the Gulf of Alaska trough. I mean, look at this, just gears in the machine, just funneling that moisture. So let's do some chat. Let's see. Yes, I am home. I was getting 47-mile-per-hour gusts here at my house today. It's pretty darn right windy. And that's another thing. We can check some of the observations around here. I noticed Spokane International looks like gusting 46. So Spokane's pretty darn right windy right now. If you're out there, let me know. It looks like it's gusting 40 knots. That 46 miles per hour is brand new. $2 Chuck, thank you for the generosity, sir. What a way to kick off the super chat there. It won't let me comment on that, but hey, buddy, thanks for what you do. And here's hoping everyone stays safe in the flood zones. Yes, indeed. And just remember, with all this rainfall falling, if you're going out in some of the foothill areas or where this heavy rain is falling, those trees, I had a neighbor's tree fall down a few weeks ago, and it wasn't even because of wind, just because the ground was kind of saturated. So do be careful out there. You know, keep your head on a swivel. Be careful. I forget exactly where that was. Somebody could probably chime in here, but somebody was killed by a falling tree just a few days ago here in the region as well. But yeah, Spokane gusting 46, Fairchild Air Force Base 37. So there are some gusty winds out there. Moses Lake 31 today. State Route 17 interchange looks like gusting 42. So yeah, there's definitely some strong winds. Let's see, what is this? State Route 225 Hanford, 55 miles per hour. That is close to severe wind. Impressive wind gust there. And if we go over towards, I don't know the name of that, Alpawa Summit. I've never heard of that before, strangely enough. 54 miles per hour. Impressive wind. Pouring here in the Puyallup River in summer. Yeah, the Puyallup is going to crest really high. There's probably going to be some flooding in the Puyallup River. And yeah, I see that's right, mentioning I want snow. I'm hoping for January, because if you get an Arctic outbreak in January, you know, that's our coldest part of the year. So that can really bring you a cold snap. And I would definitely like to see that. Two people killed in vehicles on state routes in King County past 30 days. 55 in Spokane, is that right? Maybe somebody else got 55 or somewhere in the vicinity of Spokane, but yeah, some pretty strong gusts rolling through there. If we go over to, let's take a look here. And now it doesn't want to load for us. There we go. SeaTac, 39 miles per hour at SeaTac. Got somebody from Palm Springs in here. That's convenient. Peak winds in Everett. Are you guys getting windy up there? Let's see. "48 miles per hour. Impressive. So you guys are quite windy right now. That's a big time gust. What's this out here? University of Washington doesn't show. Wind speed 27. Thanks for the generosity, Andrew Robinson. Peak winds in Everett. Yeah, 48 miles per hour. Very impressive. And if you guys are just joining, we're going to be talking about the atmospheric river. I'm probably going to go live stream tomorrow. We're going to go take a look at Snoqualmie Falls early in the morning and try to catch the peak flood stage there. And we might head out towards, we might do Ording tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly where we're going to go. Maybe a little bit further south or the Puyallup River. We'll see what we're going to do here the next couple of days. But I plan on going out there. Yeah, let me know what you get there in Everett. Looks like some precipitation. It might be a bit heavy there briefly there for Everett. If I zoom in on that. I'll put a stop to that as well, and you can kind of see that. Picking up some steam there as it over Marysville right now. Just hitting Mukilteo as we speak. You can see the problem with the Portland radar a little bit, how the radar beams kind of hit some of the higher terrain off to the east there, or the west. I believe that's Mount St. Helens that it hits right there. And I believe that's is that Mount Rainier right here? I want to say that's Mount Rainier. You can kind of see how the terrain features interact with the Doppler radar beams. But I mean, let me put this into motion here. This is just ridiculous. I mean, this rainfall is going to be going on for what, 2-3 days? Look at how heavy this precipitation is. I mean, just burrowing into the terrain. That's just insane. 55 and yeah, it was nice and warm here today as well. Race Rocks, west wind 53 miles per hour. Lady was killed yesterday, State Route 203 by the tree. Yeah, the guy she was with got like seriously injured as well. I'm 100 feet from the Puyallup River. Might get crazy. That is wild. What could cause rain shadow to fill other than the angle of the AR? Well, that's the problem with this atmospheric rivers. As long as the prevailing wind is out of a similar direction, you're going to get that rain shadow for certain areas. Because when you bring that air, you run it into the Olympic Mountains, and then the backside of that, it compresses just enough so it warms, and it does not allow that precipitation to reach the ground on the backside. So when you're getting the westerly wind or the south-southwesterly wind or whatever, the west-southwest wind, you're going to get that rain shadow. It's going to be in similar areas. A tree has fallen here in Everett in my neighborhood. That is, yeah, I believe it. 48 miles per hour peak gust there in Everett. 47 here at my house in Normandy Park. And we're going to scroll through this a little bit here. We're going to go with the North American model, and we're going to take a look at precipitation. We're going to zoom in a little bit here on Washington. So I want to show you. So this is hot off the press, is the 0Z run. You see the rain shadow there? Look at, look at what Seattle's getting versus, just across the peninsula. You can definitely see that rain shadowing taking effect. And then the atmospheric river kind of shifts to the south and really starts to include portions of Western Oregon. And as you're going through the day Wednesday, look at some of these amounts piling up. My goodness, what is this, Mount Rainier? Ugh, jeez. And, it's the terrain feature is messing with this, no doubt, but still, there's just going to be huge amounts. But look at that strong rain shadowing. Now, if we look at the wind speed there, we'll go to upper air wind. We'll go to 700 millibars. And if I back that up a little bit, you can see how the wind is in a kind of a similar direction here. Once that atmospheric river lifts north, it'll come back for us Wednesday here in Western Washington. But yeah, you're getting that compressing wind off the northeast side of the Olympic Mountains. No, these storms have always occurred. This isn't necessarily related to climate change, but it does kind of tell you how Dr. Jonas Miller in the house. Thanks for the generosity, Jonas. He's always got something funny to say. I like your mangoes. Not related to climate change per se. The issue with climate change is that it can add to the effects of a system like this, but it's usually kind of a low percentage. So you can't just point at a system and say, this storm is because of climate change. Generally, you would look at this atmospheric river and you would kind of, do some science and you'd be like, hey, this climate change probably contributed about what, 2% or 3% or 4% to the rainfall amounts, or it was warmer by maybe 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit versus what would have been without climate change. So that's how you have to view these systems. Pretty much with everything on the planet, that's going to be the case. You can't point to any individual system really and say that's because of climate change. Jonas in the house. Yeah, then it's underdoing some of this as well. Yeah, that is true. So if we look at the European, the 18Z European, let's take a look at this. You can see the rain shadowing on the European model. But now when we're going in through tonight, you can see it really shift down across Southwest Washington and Oregon. Get a little bit of a break here, but it's not much of one. By the time we go through Tuesday night, it's right back up across some of Washington. Look at the Central Cascades as they're going through Wednesday afternoon, just pegged. My goodness, look at the Central Cascades. Holy cow. Talking up over a foot of rainfall. And the Europeans probably underdoing some of that, frankly. So yeah, there's the 18Z for you. Fun stuff there. My goodness. Yeah, in the 60s, you know, we didn't know nearly as much as we did in the 60s versus what we know now. We have much better satellite technology. We know exactly where the storms are coming from. We have much better weather models. We have better weather observations, and we know the dynamics of these storms much better. Back in the 60s, you know, we're just, you know, feeling our way through things, and there's a lot of things that were going on here in the Pacific Northwest that we really didn't know. We didn't know why the convergence zone did what it did, for example, just a few decades ago. And then through, of course, the research, then we finally figured it out what's going on. But yeah, atmospheric river is a term that's just a very great descriptor for these weather systems. If you tell another meteorologist, you know, hey, there's a category 3 atmospheric river, immediately, or a category 4 or category 5, immediately the meteorologist knows, hey, it's probably it's a long event. It's got a lot of integrated vapor transport. I need to look more deeply into this. Otherwise, you could, I mean, you could sit here for, you know, you could have to write out a paragraph trying to explain what atmospheric river can communicate to another meteorologist very quickly and very efficiently. And then since we get so many of these storm systems through our fall, winter, and spring months, it's worth categorizing them. We check out how much of our yearly precipitation comes from them, how to better handle it, how to better store some of these storms, water and whatnot up and down the West Coast. So atmospheric river is something that, you know, we've been using it still for years, but it's a very effective communicating tool. If you guys didn't see, check out Fox News as well. I just got off of Fox Weather. I did like a 5-minute interview. We talked about atmospheric rivers here in the Pacific Northwest. That's what I was doing before the live stream. I was doing a little live. Ronald spins Cliff Masses on the Jason Ranch show. I'm not sure who that is. At Jonas Miller, the winds are packing a punch. Yeah, this is a great storm. I mean, if you like storms, this is the way to go. It is blowing outside. It's raining sideways, and the ground is just saturated. Andrew Robinson gifted a membership. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, if you want to nickname an atmospheric river Pineapple Express, if it's coming from Hawaii, that's no problem. Hawaii is the pineapple state officially, so, you know, whatever. But even that term, I don't like the Pineapple Express if it's not coming from Hawaii. Sometimes these things are coming off from the west, like this one is. This goes all the way back across the Pacific Ocean, so maybe give it another name. I mean, if you're going to give it a funny nickname, at least make the nickname accurate, right? Yes, this will definitely help our drought. And if you guys notice, I haven't been showing the drought monitor because we are going to get an update on that. If we look at it now, I know I've got it here somewhere. There we go. So this is just academic at this point. This is going to be updated here. Next Thursday, we're going to really reduce a lot of this drought. The issue is that if we don't, you know, you never want your precip to come too fast and heavy, but what you really want for next spring and into next summer is a good snowpack. That would really help the farmers, especially in the Yakima River Basin. What does the Euro and Artificial Intelligence Ensemble show? Well, let's check it out. First, let's look at the control run. So this is the 18Z. Let's make this bigger. Impressive amount. So what I'm worried about here a little bit is, I wanted to check this out here before we go any further. Let's do this. Let's bounce out. We'll go to Oceanic and we'll go to Northeast. What I want to see here is, okay, so here we go. This is the bad boy on us right now. Herd Bull, thank you for your generosity. Thanks for all your consistent work. Wind mild in the West Cascade foothills of Oregon right now. Okay, so bounces back down Tuesday, bounces back north as we go through Tuesday night into Wednesday, hangs out on in towards Thursday morning, still with us as we go through Thursday night, finally starts to get north. But at that point, it starts to target British Columbia a little bit more. Then what do we get after that? So it stays fairly wet. Atmospheric river again, close and nearby. That would be bad news, that one right there. So the models have been showing something like this kind of hanging out as we go. I mean, my gosh, look at these. These ARs are just going ballistic here on the Pacific Northwest. So yeah, that's why we're dealing with so much precipitation. If we take a look at that, let's see. Yeah, so some pretty hefty amounts. And you can see how that storm track has been pointed at, or is going to be pointed at, the Pacific Northwest versus Central and Southern Oregon. Much drier through Southern Oregon and California. Weather nerds unite indeed. I was getting wind when I came down here at 7 o'clock into my den. Ryan Boltalainen is in the house. Near Republic, Washington had 5 inches of snow on the ground. Now temps way mild. Forecast to stay that way next couple of weeks. Yeah, that's not good. That's something we're going to look at here next as well, though I have a hunch it's not going to change. Let's look at the GFS ensemble here. 18Z data. Share some of this cold air with us, will you please? So here we go. Again, we're looking at 5,000 feet here. And why is this kicking me off? Okay. Again, we go through Thursday, pretty locked in there, but the warm temperatures stay, even though that cold air is so close. It's in central British Columbia, but just stays bottled up, and we stay in this warm southwest flow. Little bit of that cooler air tries to briefly work in, but then, then there's more that tries to replace it. Scroll off into the extended more, and you see that ridge off the coast of California, southwest flow, still back up into the Pacific Northwest. And man, there's just not a great cold signal, although the cold air is up there. So maybe just a little bit of a shift here in the extended forecast will help us out a bit. Mark Stewart in the house. Yep. So the plan is to go to Snoqualmie Falls tomorrow morning, most likely. That's making it small. Let's take a look here. So this is the combination of Doppler radars. So this does a pretty good job. Look at that rain shadow. You can see it right Seattle Metro and northbound. Then you get the westerly surge kind of swooping down there. You can see the strong rain shadowing off to the east as well. Pretty windy in Spokane right now, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah, so that's what I was going to look at. Okay, I'll stop delaying here. Here's Mount Baker on the 18Z. I mean, you're going to get some snow at times, but man, there's some pretty good warm-ups in between on some of these systems. Through this weekend is not great, but you do get a bit of a cool down, looks like on Thursday afternoon into Friday morning. Bit of a cool down here as we go towards tomorrow morning. So you'll get some snow, then you'll melt some of it, and you'll get some rain, and it'll pack it, and then you'll get a little bit more snow. Look at Stampede Pass. That's just kind of a joke. I mean, actually, that's why. That's because that's at 31 feet. Let's look at Snoqualmie Pass. That was not that accurate of information I just shared with you. There's Snoqualmie, 3,000 feet. Look at that. The freezing line does not even get down towards the pass areas. Freezing level at times all the way up to 10,000 feet. That's why some of these rivers coming off the central and the southern Cascades of Washington, some of Northwest Oregon, and some of the coastal ranges are just going to be absolutely raging. You're going to be raining way up above the pass levels. What did you see spin out on I-5? Yeah, they should set up a webcam for Snoqualmie Falls. Maybe they'll let me buy him one. Let's look at the Langley Doppler radar. If we can get it to load. I don't know what's happening there. Somebody checked. Did Langley go out? I don't know what's going on with Langley here, but hope I didn't lose my internet just now. Yeah, I don't know. Stevens Pass. Let's look at the 18Z. Yeah, not spending too much time below freezing here over the next 6 days. Not a good look. Crystal Mountain as well. I mean, look at that. You're just whew, all the way through this weekend. Look at how high that freezing level is at Crystal Mountain. Crystal Mountain's fairly high. That's 4,500 feet up. Snow level above 10,000 feet. Raining very hard in Enumclaw. Yeah, I bet it is. Burien, Washington in the house. Welcome. You're not too far from me. Western Washington weather says quite a line of precip through Everett. Yeah, we were looking at that surge there inside of the northwest now. I live about half a mile from Snoqualmie Falls. That sounds like fun. Western Washington. Yeah, Camp Muir will be getting rain. That'll be a mess up there. Wow. All right, where did I hide my snow here? We'll just do this. We're just going to go to snow depth. 18Z data. So you can actually see the snow. We actually get a little bit of snow here tonight into tomorrow morning. A little bit. Across, looks like across Stampede and Snoqualmie, maybe a bit. But then it melts again as you go through Wednesday night into Thursday. And even some of the way up north, the highest peaks of the North Cascades even lose some of their snowpack. Even Mount Rainier. I mean, look at that. Mount Rainier loses some of its snowpack all the way on in through the weekend. And look at this. There's not much snow at all across some of the Central Cascades. Not a good look. But yeah, if you're just joining us, there is our atmospheric river all the way back towards the Philippines. That's why I've been nicknaming it the Mango Express. There we go. There's the Langley Doppler radar. You can see that slamming into the Washington and Oregon coast right now. Looks like it's lightening up a little bit up there, Cape Flattery, Northwest Washington. Yeah, Carnation, you're in for some big flooding going through tomorrow. Highland Park in the house. Weather nerds unite. You can see the front on the Langley radar. Aaron McLean, thanks for the generosity, sir. Let's bounce back towards, if you look all the way back across the Western Pacific, you can see our atmospheric river. It was stretched all the way back. Towards Vietnam, all the way back towards Bangladesh, I guess. Pretty intense stuff. It's fun watching how the entire planet is connected, though. This is such a cool satellite view, too. You can see the southern hemisphere on that. Anybody here have a National Weather Service radio? Mine was going nuts today when they started issuing the flood warnings on the rivers. Snohomish River is expected to flood. That is correct. It's been windy out there also. Spokane National Weather Service kept this up going all the way into Tuesday. Spokane was gusting in the mid-40s last I checked, but I saw some mid-50 gusts out there as well across some of southeast Washington. Somebody said something about, let's see. That's probably something I'm going to throw in there here. I'm hoping to get, you can see about Seahurst, just north of Burien, 1.16. I'm hoping they will show a map that shows like the whole area out there. 1.32 Marine View Drive South. And these Tempest stations, they do talk to each other as well. Southwest Federal Way, 1.41. You see the amounts getting higher the further south we get. Let's do something like this. Look at that, 2.66 in Ashford. That's actually a really good question, Derek Cook, about atmospheric rivers. You can get atmospheric rivers in both. You do get atmospheric rivers both in La Nina and El Nino. Typically during La Nina years, you'll get a pretty good atmospheric river in the month of November, and it can be pretty rainy as well. So during El Nino years, when the last Godzilla, the huge El Nino we had was back in 2015, 2016. And that was expected to get California, but it was a little bit further north than what was forecast. So you do get a pretty good shot of moisture back towards the west coast. But a lot of times during El Nino years, those atmospheric rivers will kind of tend to favor some of California at times a bit more, if that makes sense. But you can get them during La Nina years, just usually they're not quite as substantial proportions of the west coast. Like during the La Nina year a few years ago for California, when they were just getting absolutely blasted, the atmospheric rivers were strong, but they weren't epic level strong, where you'll get some really warm ocean waters that will add some actual convective available potential energy to the atmospheric rivers. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. What should I worry about? Key Center. Where is Key Center? Somebody remind me again, please. Cowlitz River blown out. Water across many roads. Wow. South Whidbey checking in. Yeah, you guys have been getting the rain shadow. Heavy rain in Edmonds, 56. Must feel, you can probably smell the mangoes out there. Let's check Packwood, US 12. That doesn't show too much there. Let's check this. Some of these people, some of the stations just might not be operational, but 6.66, 2.63, probably a bit more accurate there. I wonder how close that the river will get there to Chehalis, Centralia. Key Center is on the Key Peninsula west of Gig Harbor. The question is, how much are you getting rain shadowed right now? Looks like there is some rain shadowing going on across Kitsap Peninsula, which makes sense because you're right butted up against the Olympic Mountains there. Lights just flickered in Kent. Tacoma Power will begin releasing 9,000 cubic feet per second from the La Grande Dam. Okay, let's check a few things out here. If you guys click on these maps, you see all these here? These are flood warnings or flood advisories. So if you click on these individual locations, the color coding on this is not that good because they got like a hydrologic outlook. But if you look closely, you can see other layers of green kind of embedded in there. But this is where some of the river flooding is. And if you click on those individual areas, you can see what kind of flood watch or what flood warning is in effect. You know, I have a story about 1996. So we had some pretty extreme flooding in 1996, and I just got my first car going to my friend's house on Kent East Hill. I forget the road exactly, but there was a barricade and I could see the road was washed out, but I wanted to go down and see what it looked like a little bit more. Got towards it and I was like, okay. And I turned around and came back up. Then I went to my friend's house, which was on the other side of that road. And we walked down there, and underneath the cement had been eaten away by the water. So I had driven extremely close to where it was just a very thin layer of cement kind of over a washed out road. So, I mean, that's just a good example of why you do not drive around barricades. You don't know what is underneath that road. If there's a washout or something, you don't know how extensive the damage is. And yeah, I don't know what would have happened had I fallen through that, and I would have been in my car in the raging floodwaters. So yeah, learn from my bad decision. Luckily, it didn't get me. But yeah, I can click on these individual areas and you can see all this stuff. There's also a lot of good stuff with the National Weather Service. If you check it out, when you get to 15,000 cubic feet per second, the Nisqually River will cause major flooding along the upper reaches of the river. Deep and swift floodwaters will inundate roads, pasture lands, farms, levees. So yeah, be careful out there, folks. Yeah, I think I have my river map up here. Where is... Here we go. And so if you guys are wondering, you're out and about across Western Oregon, Western Washington, wherever you see these purples, those are areas that are reaching major flood stage. So if you go to this site, just Google search water.noaa.gov if you need like some more detailed information, if I'm not covering something enough for you. But if I click on here for Snoqualmie Falls or Carnation, Washington, you can see it gives you all kinds of good information. Major flood stage we're headed into, probably two portions. One tomorrow and then one probably on the 10th and 11th. And if you click on the full gauge page here, where'd it go? Okay, here we go. So flood impact. So we were headed towards what, about 59 feet? Once you get above 58, you can see some of the hazards in the general area. So very important to do. And you know, if you have to be out traveling about, you got to go to work, you got to go to your business, or you got to get home, whatever you may be doing out there, just remember, you know, remember this site here, because it'll give you a lot of good information. So if you go to Snohomish River at Snohomish, Washington, you can see again, major flood stage. It's only 2.5 feet off the record. I mean, this is a very impressive flood coming up here. It's not the biggest flood we've ever gotten or anything, but each of these floods ends up being a little bit unique for different areas, and you never know what's going on. And certain areas can flood, or, you know, roads get washed out, things happen. So do be careful out there. And if you click again on the full gauge page there, so up over 31 feet, Snohomish River will cause major flooding, overtop levees. So yeah, be careful. White River, major flood stage. Yeah. Yeah, Mount Hood has not been doing good for snow. There's not a lot of snow in the Oregon Cascades. Maybe Garrett Hartung can chime in on that. But if I showed you guys the snow depth, and in fact, here, let me back this up here. We'll go to, just for the heck of it, I'll show you guys, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm ignoring Oregon. There's just not much snow at all, though, coming for Oregon. Look at Mount Hood for the next 6 days. Your freezing level's above 10,000 feet. And I mean, that's getting pretty close to the mountaintop out there. You can see as we go through the weekend, maybe a bit of cool air tries to work its way down. But if we go back to the 12, this goes out 10 days. You can see as you go out through the 10-day period here, not a good look. .6 inches of rain in Lacey, 807 minutes of rain so far. Well, it's official. It's going to be a La Nina year, so I think that we'll flirt with snow at some point for the lower elevations, if I had to guess. I mean, we're only in early December still right now. Yeah, and if you guys see, I got 144 hours here. This is snow depth on the ground. I mean, that's only a couple inches across some of Oregon Cascades. It's not a lot here except for the highest terrain across the Washington Cascades as well. This is not a good time for snow really across much of the Pacific Northwest. Better amounts across British Columbia. I'm not really showing that too much here because the lack of snow is really the big story here. And with this atmospheric river, it's really going to decimate some of the lower elevation snow. Yeah, Western Washington weather. So with the White River, it'll be major, moderate for 3 to 4 days. That's a good point, and that could cause many structures to be inundated, according to the National Weather Service. So Nisqually, there's Cowlitz, White River, Auburn. So you're looking at 13,000. Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, look at that. 12,000 is the cutoff there. Fast flowing floodwaters in many places in Auburn, Pacific, and Sumner. .630 people in the chat. Thanks for joining, everybody. We've been going over some of the river action. A lot of river flooding coming up here, and a lot of, when you see these purple dots out there, that is major flood stage for a lot of places in Western Washington. So hopefully you guys stocked up a little bit and you've been watching the videos over the last few days. because it's probably best not to be running out and about if you can avoid it. Especially, you know, I mean, if you're in an urban area, that's kind of a different thing where you're in the rain shadow and whatnot. But if you're, you know, if you live near a river and whatnot, you don't want to be driving around here too much. Carnation, Snoqualmie River is going to get bad. The White River, like in Auburn and things like that. If we click on Carbon River, Puyallup River is going to get bad as well. Nisqually here, and there's Cowlitz. The record. So that's pretty close to the all-time record high, 23.74 feet. 25.2 is the record, as you can see. And that's well above the highest impacts there. Vicinity of Randall downstream through Rife Lake. Dangerous inundation of many roads, including US Highway 12. So yeah, storm chasers here in the Pacific Northwest, take your pick. What do you feel like going for? Yeah, White Christmas, pretty unlikely for many locations, but it's still far enough away that you can't say you're not going to get one, because 17 days, things can change pretty quickly. And something that you can never fully discount is, let's do this. So this is the artificial intelligence. This is at 850 millibars, 5,000 feet. This batch of cold air down there, if things go perfectly right and something happens, it's not out of the question you could get some colder air in here. But there's Wednesday afternoon. Some of that cold air on the move slides east of the Rockies. That's not much help, but it does get into central BC there. So it's still really warm aloft there across Washington, Southwest BC, though, Oregon. And you see as we just continue out, some of that cooler air tries to get out over the Gulf and back into the Pacific Northwest, but it just doesn't really ever get in here. And it just continues to show us being above average all the way through the 15-day time period. The only thing that gives me pause is maybe some of this cold air will get on the move, and the forecast can change over the next week or so, but it just does not, it just continues to not show up in the models. I'm just going through 15-day time periods here. Not much help. Yeah, I don't know. Lake Coachillas, I don't know how much it's going to fill up from this. I guess we'll see. Well, I'm hoping we get a cold period in January, but who knows? Yeah, we had some people making forecasts for some snow coming up here the last couple of weeks, and like talking about big time snow coming from the mountains. That does not look like it's going to be the case. That's why you got to be careful of making forecasts too far off into the future. Let's take a look at the European ensemble, the 18Z data. See at the end of the run there where it kind of tries to get off the continent here, back out over the water. I keep hoping that that just gets, but as you can see, there's really no, I mean, this is just another trough. The trough is pretty far extended off to the south and west there. That's not really going to do it. 68 miles per hour Hoquiam. There's possible flooding in Oregon as well. Yes. I'm going to close some of these out so I can get around here a little bit better. So if we look at this, across portions of Oregon, there are rivers hitting moderate flood stage. The orange dots. That's only into minor right there, but let's see some other activity here. There's minor. So it definitely looks like the biggest flooding is going to be across western Washington, no doubt. I haven't seen Lake Cheetah's. It's been going down for, it seems like 20 years. I drive by I-90 all the time, and that water used to be way up towards I-90, and it is just way far away from the freeway now. Water over the roadway, Highway 101 Seaside. Oh, sorry. So check out the Nisqually here. So yeah, 15,900 is the forecast right now. That is major flood stage, and we click on the flood gauge page or full gauge page, if it will load for us. Then you scroll down here and you see, again, top end impacts for the Nisqually River. Upper reaches of the Mount Rainier National Park, downstream to Alder Lake. Deep and swift floodwaters will inundate roads, pasture lands, and farms. Overtop levees, flooding will occur along the river, including headwaters, tributaries, and other streams. So yeah, big time flooding coming here, folks. Skagit River, Mount Vernon. Look at that. You're getting close to that record high. That's, what, 1.3 feet off the record. And that's on the high end of the flood impacts there too for the Skagit River. Snoqualmie River near Carnation under a flood warning now. And the thing is here, so this is what we're looking at right now. This is what, 7:15, so it was almost an hour ago. Here, let's bounce back out. Here's Carnation. Yeah, you're getting some huge water rises here in Carnation coming up. So about 4 p.m. tomorrow for Carnation, you peak, you drop back down for a bit, and then you're back up. But by the time you go towards Wednesday afternoon, you're right back up into a major flood stage. That would be something to watch. 1996, the Willamette River in Oregon City flooded so high that thousands of docks and boat houses came up over the pylons and floated downstream and crashed over the falls. That would be a wild video. And I've been doing this live stream for almost an hour now, and you can continue to see non-stop precipitation across some of the Central Cascades, Southern Cascades. A lot of precipitation coming in just south of SeaTac too. I mean, if you're in Olympia, I-5 corridor there, Tacoma, you're getting a lot of rainfall also. I'm not sure how they do Snoqualmie Falls. Yeah, if you're in the Willamette Valley, you can get some of that southeast wind. It's kind of the warm front feature there where you're getting the southerlies out ahead of this system. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Again, we've been talking about the rivers. All those purple squares, those are all rivers reaching major flood stage here over the next actually starting tomorrow in the next 1 to 3 days. Infrared satellite imagery. Lot of flood advisories and flood warnings going on right now. And click on these individual areas if you need to know more detail about that. Still got the wind advisory going. That should probably be clicking down here in a little bit. I got 47 at my house. Everett got 48. Spokane was gusting in the mid 40s also. Check out Hoquiam, 68 miles per hour. That ASOS must be in a very favorable spot. The Wolf 1099 member for 15 months. Thank you very much for being a member. You guys are what makes this channel go. Thank you. Look at this Sedge Ridge, 72 miles per hour, 63 knots. That's almost hurricane force. High Bridge 48. Tillamook, a little gusty. That's a gale force wind, 39 miles an hour. North Pole Ridge down there in the Oregon Cascades, 49 miles an hour. But yeah, look at these warm temperatures out there. 56 in Olympia. 55. 55 in Seattle. Aquachunk in the house. Welcome. How does your Tempest compare with your fancy anemometer? Well, the anemometer I have, my RM Young anemometer, is probably $2,500 all said and done. And it's definitely more accurate. It's more responsive, but it's not $2,000 or $2,200 more. It would not be worth it. I would not buy the RM Young if I was not an ultimate weather junkie. Let's put it that way. The Tempest ultrasonic anemometer does quite well, actually. You can do a lot worse for sure. I mean, there's always better weather stuff you can buy if you're willing to spend the money. But I mean, for the casual weather watcher, it's a great tool just to have a Tempest. It does a lot of other stuff as well. But the thing with any weather station is that when you're trying to co-locate anemometer versus thermometer, you're always going to have to give something up. If you want to put your wind reading on a roof, your temperature reading is not going to be as accurate, and nor will your rainfall reading and things like that. So it might be a little bit better actually with the haptic rain gauge. But yeah, there's always give and take with weather stations. Like, I have it where my thermometer is right above grass and my anemometer is 32 feet or 33 feet up in the air, and I've got everything set up perfectly. But that was a lot of planning I had to do. That I bought this house, really specifically because I liked the actual weather setup here. So I knew I would be able to have my thermometer very accurate and my wind speed very accurate and whatnot. And yeah, so you can put as much time and as much money as you want into it, like a lot of other hobbies, like photography or collectible cars, stuff like that. You can really spend a lot of money on those things. Still 46 the high for Spokane. High gust. Checking out a few things here. Let's see if they've updated this yet. So we got still slight risk as we go towards tomorrow morning. No upgrade for day 3 yet. Actually, let me make sure I updated that. Here's day 4. Still slight risk. So this latest update here was Eastern Standard. That was about 3 hours ago. There's always good discussion in here. There's been a northward trend in the atmospheric river moisture plume by Wednesday, still looking at additional heavy rainfall total over western Washington. There remains some potential for an eventual moderate risk upgrade. That's what I've been wondering about for the last 2 days, and they're talking about it. However, the steady northward trend seen in the models does somewhat lower confidence on exactly where the max rainfall. That's almost exactly what I was thinking. So glad to see that they're thinking the same thing there. So they're not going to upgrade yet because they don't know exactly where the heaviest rain axis will set up specifically. We do still have that. So this is what's known as a mesoscale precipitation discussion is, and you can see Western Washington, some of Northwest Oregon kind of in the bullseye there. And they put this out and you can see strong first surge of prolonged atmospheric river, persistent quarter to half inch hour rates, totals of 6 inches in terrain, 1 to 2 in main valleys. Heavy rainfall, flash flooding possible. So you can see they do these discussions. These are really good. Lots of good information in here. Look at that atmospheric river with long tap back to the tropics near the date line and even further back than that. Strength of the polar stream with 150 to 170 knots, fairly zonal upper level jet resulted in very strong deep layer flow, which resulted in fairly long gradual isentropic incline to deplete any potential vertical instability. So, okay, so how are they wording that again? So there's not much vertical instability. The strength of the moisture flux anomalies are pushing the maximum climatological percentiles for this time of year. 95th to 99th percentile. Most noted in the 700 to 500 millibar at this time. So about 10,000, 18,000 feet, just extremely moist. Sorry, I'm reading it here. I'm geeking out on this stuff. Isolated total 6, 7 inches plus along the core of the AR and southern Washington Cascade Range. Overall flash flood guidance are high enough to encompass all the highest extreme values being greater than 3. Okay. Full saturation should occur through the late afternoon. And main surge occurs towards 0Z. Much of the rainfall should convert to runoff. That's going to be a problem. This should swell the rivers fairly quickly with compounding issues resulting in riverine flooding. There's that word again. That's one of the, I think I've heard that word before, but I've never really seen it used too much. Given this is the first surge of a prolonged atmospheric river event, the potential for flash flooding is likely limited to the highest slopes reaching into the watersheds or some localized urban flooding due to poor drainage. Then you get the saturation of soils through depth. There will be slowly increasing potential for mudslides, especially near downslope, any recent burn scar areas. So yeah, they put out some really good stuff here. Okay, let's catch back up with the chat. Tillamook, Rockaway, and Seaside flooded out on roadways. Grays River now at major flood stage, reports Garrett Hartung. A lot of crashes. That's interesting. My fish pond is reaching flood stage. That's good. How do weather events like this affect drought conditions compared to snowpack? Well, they help fill reservoirs sometimes. And you think it's always tricky because it's never as easy as just catching all the water. I mean, a huge percentage of this water that falls will run off. You know, there's only a certain amount of area you can have for reservoirs. And the thing with reservoirs and dams is you have to watch how much sediment is behind. You know, you can't, there's a lot of debris that can get caught up in the flooding. They can damage dams and things like that. So it's always better that if it comes as snow. And when you get rainfall, a lot of it converts to runoff pretty quickly, at least compared to snow. Snow you can pile up several inches. You can pile up a couple feet or more of snowfall, the snow water equivalent of it. And then if you melt it off slowly, it can seep into the ground and it can really help individual locations, or, wherever that snow can slowly melt, it'll absorb back into the ground much better. Rainfall will run off much more rapidly. And of course, a huge snowpack is a great natural reservoir, and you're going to be able to hold a lot more of that water. If I wanted to buy a house in Western Washington to avoid the risk of catastrophic flooding, where should I look? Well, that's a good question. You probably want to do it on a hillside. You wouldn't want to be in any kind of valley or any lower lying area, although any place can flood, generally on some kind of a hillside. But then again, you got to be careful that you're not too close, that you're dealing with some landslide issues as well. Stanwood, Arlington. Yeah, there's a lot of flooding potential here. There's a Stillaguamish at Arlington, moderate flood stage. 17.7, not really near the record, but it's not that far off of major flood stage. So you're up around this here for the Stillaguamish River. Will flood many roads, including Highway 530. Phase 3. But yeah, you can see what you might be dealing with there. Carbon River is going to be pretty high too tomorrow morning. Some of these forecasts do really change. Look at the Puyallup River is really rising quite quickly. Look at that, already up over 11,400 cubic feet per second. It's supposed to be up to 18.8, and really quickly, actually. What time is this? This is 10 p.m., man. I should be out chasing this right now. What am I doing at home? Is Mark still in the house here? Or you guys, maybe we should go down to the Puyallup. Look at this. So 18,800 full flood page. Yeah, that's well above that high end, man. I'm going to message somebody here. I'm going to text on my live stream. Yeah, this is a pretty good one. That's a lot of areas getting up into moderate or major flood stage. So yeah, this will definitely help with the drought. The problem is I hope that we build up the snowpack as we go, because we really need it to help with any drought conditions we go through next year. And from what I've learned is that in some of the reservoirs, you can only catch so much kind of early in the season like this. It's not like you can just, you need to leave some room in your reservoirs for continued flooding. And then if you do end up building up a lot of snow, that snow can melt really rapidly as well. So you need some flood control also. That's why some reservoirs, so I'm told, actually release water as a big event like this is coming in, because you don't know how much the runoff is going to be. You're trying to protect things downstream. You're trying to do things like protect salmon runs and stuff like that. So yeah. Get pitted on the Puyallup. Indeed. I'm a professional storm chaser. Do as I say, not as I do. Some of the stuff we've gotten ourselves into over the years storm chasing has been quite interesting at times. There were landslides on Sunday before the storm even hit. Can't wait to see what's after. I didn't realize the Puyallup was going to go so high tonight. But I am so tired right now, though. That's the problem. Yeah, the snow level is going to be pretty high. It'll be rising as we go through tomorrow and the next couple days. But yeah, thanks for joining, you guys. I think I'm going to wrap this up. I've just got extremely tired. I'm still extremely jet lagged. If my body clock feels like it's 11:30 at night right now, and I did not sleep much last night, so probably best I don't go out tonight. But anyway, thanks for joining, you guys. Thanks for the generosity, and I will be doing my briefing at some point tomorrow, or I will be live streaming at some point tomorrow, so check back for then. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next forecast. Thanks for joining, everybody.